rebellion is a word that comes to mind. I don't know if that's always correct, but it's trying to get a message out.
Like violence, it's always like, protests are always tied to violence. And I usually think of like, I've grown to start thinking of protests as peaceful endeavors, and also like trying to be as communicative as possible. So like protests can be like, you know, lie downs or like sit downs in a public area.
I try to think about their perspectives first, then try to approach from their ways of thinking so that I can actually peacefully and proactively convince them and have them on the same side so that we can actually create a positive and peaceful change together.
It's tricky because I'm not a citizen here, so a lot of the time I feel like I don't have the right to protest for like anything in this country, even if I believe in it, just because it's not my country. So it's not like, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't see it as like my problem, even though it's gonna affect like my everyday life.
So I'm vegan, and I like to think of that as my silent protest, like every day, that I'm thinking about what the meat industry in America especially is doing, and how consumerism is like taking over people's livelihoods and healthy lifestyles. So to remind myself of that every single time I have a meal is like very important to me.
It's a group of people coming together to be like, this thing sucks and we want change. And it's not the same as putting things into action, but it's like a call for action. That's how it plays out in my head. I don't know if it actually plays like that in real life, because obviously it doesn't. Like the Parkland students and the nightclub like survivors, like they both marched together for like gun control shit, and Florida just voted no. Like, so the universe doesn't always work in productive ways, effective ways, ways that would save lives. But all we can do is try. I think protests are just people trying.
You do it in such a way that you are demanding to be respected as well. And I knew it's peaceful and very well intentioned. I participate in protests through discussions and on a very minor scale, even if it's just discussing with friends.
And I think it's a dialogue that we're able to create now more like powerfully than ever before. So I would say that protesting is something that can be done constantly. It's not necessarily something which is as grand a scale as going to a demonstration or a rally. It can even start with just like a comment or an act of sharing or supporting, even online.
The way I see protesting happening would actually be to be a person of significance, to be a person of power, and from there affect changes in the different spheres, instead of just trying to get your voice heard, because I feel like that is not enough.
So like when Standing Rock was happening, I was out protesting. When the Michael Brown stuff was happening, I was out on the streets protesting. Then with kind of other stuff, like especially like more NYU based stuff, it'll definitely be like a lot more like writing think pieces, tweeting, like whatever.
What the art of protest was, it was illegal to have that many people of color in one area, and now you're allowed to protest, like, yeah, police protection, and I just feel like, I feel like it's lost absolute meaning and like actual power.
As there are people that say protest involves going out there, creating your signs, standing your lines, being in the battlefield, that's to me is active protest, but there is a such thing as passive protest.
Writing, holding meetings, events, asking questions, creating discussions, all of those I think in many ways can actually be even more powerful forms of protest than the very public ones.